It's hard to imagine, but there was a time in America when it didn't seem important to protect the environment. Maybe it was all the money that came along with resource extraction, or maybe we just didn't know any better. In any case, prior to the 1970s, our rivers and air were choked with pollution and toxic waste. Our wildlands were paved for subdivisions and parking lots. Our native fish populations were in decline, and large-scale mining was decimating virgin landscapes. By the 1980s, rapid resource extraction and environmental degradation had become a defining characteristic of the American West. In Oregon, it was timber that was king. The Forest Service was toppling our last remaining ancient forests at breakneck speed. Mounting evidence suggested that this pace of logging was far from sustainable, but with powerful timber interests dominating Oregon politics, protecting forests was not an easy sell. Nevertheless, this was the setting in which a small law clinic at the University of Oregon was attempting to do just that. After a flurry of lawsuits, several court victories resulted in sweeping reforms that forever changed how forests were managed, and these landmark cases thrust the health of old-growth forests into the forefront of American consciousness. But in a region where the timber industry was such an influential force, it soon became clear that the clinic would be stronger and more effective if independent from the university. So in 1993, the clinic moved off campus and the Western Environmental Law Center was born. WELC's new independence and steady demand for environmental justice across the West led to rapid growth for the clinic. They quickly expanded to the Southwest, and the New Mexico office soon halted the construction of what would have been the largest nuclear weapons testing facility in the world. This achievement set a precedent for the magnitude of their work to come. Over the next 2 decades, WELC would chalk up dozens of major victories across the broad range of environmental problems afflicting the West. In 1996, WELC secured the public's right to know the hidden ingredients in pesticides and won a precedent-setting ruling that regulated pesticide and herbicide spraying near rivers and streams. In WELC's founding state of Oregon, they stopped the outdated and unnecessary practice of field burning that had been fouling the air for decades. They forced the cleanup of toxic runoff from a nuclear testing facility after a 10-year battle and forced some of the most toxic coal power plants to reduce air pollution. All welcome victories for people across the West. In New Mexico, WELC protected over 80 rivers and 4 national forests and quickly extended this protection to surrounding states. They blocked river diversions and fought for dam removals, allowing salmon to access historic spawning areas. They restricted harmful dredging of salmon habitat in Oregon's rivers and stopped large industrial dairies from polluting Washington's streams and drinking wells. Other court victories reduced the use of off-road vehicles and livestock grazing in national forests. WELC also protected critical Rocky Mountain wildlife corridors from development and preserved wilderness areas in the Sierra Nevada and the North Cascades for the sake of keeping them truly wild. In New Mexico, WELC stopped the first licensed buffalo hunt since 1884. They halted cougar hunts and they stepped in to save the endangered Mexican wolf from extinction, forcing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to return the wolf to its native habitat. By 2007, WELC's Montana office had opened, allowing them to more broadly protect critical habitats of threatened and endangered species in the northern Rockies. This paid off years later when a Montana court ruling halted recreational trapping of the rare and endangered wolverine, an important win for another species on the brink of extinction. With climate change emerging as a global threat, dirty energy became a major target, and WELC forcefully pushed back against the Bush administration's 8-year assault on the environment. WELC spearheaded a massive campaign to permanently protect New Mexico's Valle Vidal from coal bed methane drilling. It was a groundbreaking level of community involvement that protected this valley of life forever. As climate change predictions became more dire, WELC stepped up efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from oil and gas operations. Their lawsuits forced the government to halt drilling and evaluate its climate impacts. They also led efforts to mandate that industries report their greenhouse gas emissions, and their persistent work led to drilling suspensions, allowing agencies to better evaluate environmental impacts to communities. WELC also helped bring atmospheric trust litigation to court, and represented renowned climate scientist Dr. James Hansen in an unprecedented lawsuit that challenged the government's failure to protect the atmosphere for our children and generations to come. After 20 years of protecting our future through environmental achievements, WELC remains as committed as ever to using the power of law to uphold America's ideals and long-term sustainability. WELC will continue to preserve our clean air and to protect our national forests and public lands, which provide vital habitat for wildlife, drinking water for communities, recreation, and spiritual renewal for all. WELC will advocate for family farms, ranches, and communities across the West, to spare them the burdens of unbridled and irresponsible development and resource extraction. WELC will press on in the stand against short-term gains and policies that dam rivers, alter waterways, and destroy aquatic habitats so that Western waters will remain clean and free-flowing. The impacts of climate change pose dire consequences to all of our landscapes, rivers, wildlife, and communities. WELC recognizes the urgent necessity to sharply reduce greenhouse gas emissions and transition to clean, carbon-free energy. For 20 years, WELC has been at the center of nearly every key battle to preserve and extend critical environmental protections, and WELC will continue to defend the cherished natural heritage of the American West for years to come.